Hello and welcome to Better Than Art School. This is a very short demo that just addresses how to do a head study, kind of how to approach it, some approaches for that. Okay, so start with a ground color. That's the easiest way. You can start on the white canvas if you want, but if you start in a more middle value, if you decide it's going to be more cool or more warm, that unifies the painting. It makes it look more finished even when it's not finished, and it's a color that'll reappear underneath the painting a little bit. So I tend to focus on the warms and the flesh tones. So what I do is I'm doing a cool ground color here, and then once I have it, let me go back to that for a sec. Then I'm going to draw on top of it. Okay, so it's a ground color. You can even draw into it while it's still wet if you want. And what I'm going to do here is the ground color is cool and it's gray, desaturated, and then I'm going to draw into it with a more saturated, warmer color. In this case, it's kind of a burnt sienna mixed with some ultramarine blue. And what I'm doing in the construction drawing here is I'm not trying to draw every little detail. In fact, I don't want to do that because I don't want this to be like a coloring book. I don't want to just draw in stuff and then color it in. What I'm trying to do instead is set the head position, like the center line, the eyes, nose, mouth, make sure they're all parallel in space. Make sure I figure out, am I looking at a frontal view, a three-quarter view in this case, or a profile, all those kind of things. And then the next thing I'm going to do is try to establish side planes like this. Okay, so this is the front of the face, then I'm going to establish where are the side planes. I'm going to make sure that my drawing of the neck, it looks kind of like a cylinder, all those kinds of things. Okay, then I'm just going to very broadly paint a shadow area and a light area. If I start with a 1-2 concept like shadow, light, then it's a lot easier to paint into later. So what I'm going to do here is, these colors aren't meant to be perfect representations of what I'm seeing. It's more like, okay, this is basically the shadow, this is where the head turns away from the light, and then here's more saturated but basically close to the right color skin tone. Okay, and there's some places where they kind of mix in together, and that just signals to me as I move forward, okay, this area is going to be in the shadow, this area is going to be in the light, and the side plane falls into shadow, the front plane in this case falls into light. Okay, so then I'm going to try to unify the portrait to the space that the portrait is in. Okay, a big mistake the beginning painters make is that they make everything local. They mix every color as if it's in a vacuum, and they mix colors based on their ideas of color. So they think, oh, red shirt, red color. And what you do when you do a portrait or really any painting is you're trying to move the colors through each other. And what I want to do here is take some of the shadow colors and her skin tone and then move it onto the wall next to her. So because she's next to a window, and the light's coming in from the window, so it silhouettes that whole windowsill. But if you look at those colors, they're just slightly cooler versions of what we see in the skin tone. So it all kind of relates. Okay, now I'm going to key the painting. So keying the painting, you can find your dark key and your light key. You can put a white piece of paper up to the painting and make sure it gets all the way up to the lightest light that your white paper has, or you can put a dark sheet of paper next to it. But in this case, I'm just going to paint her hair because that's the darkest part of this painting. So by putting in her hair, I kind of know better what my value range is in the painting. Okay, then I'm going to reestablish the drawing a little bit because the drawing has gotten a little bit lost, and I'm going to start to look for nuance within the shadow area. So in this case, core shadow versus reflected light. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to go in, I'm going to kind of, you can see I've got a neutral drawing color. I'm just kind of reasserting the drawing a little bit, drawing things like the eyebrows. I'm checking, making sure that my facial proportions are down, and then I'm just establishing some nuance in the shadow. Okay, key the lighter and darker values and compare relative saturation levels. So a good idea when you're doing portraits is to start with the nose, because if you can get a good sense of where the light's coming from, and the light area and the shadow area, and the sense of three-dimensional form in the nose, that can kind of bleed out to the rest of the face. The nose is right in the middle of the head, and it can kind of inform everything around it. Okay, so I'm kind of start just doing a little redrawing, establishing the nose, making sure that I can tell what's the side plane of the nose, what's the light area. Now I'm kind of keying the painting, the light part of the painting. I already keyed the darkest dark, which is the hair. Now I'm just going to key some of the lighter areas. And this is all comparative. It's all based on comparison. I'm comparing what's cooler and warmer, what's lighter and darker, all these little areas like that. Okay, and then this is what leads to the final pass that I do with the painting, is I paint a really saturated color, and then I paint the lights directly into it while the paint is still wet, so I don't have hard edges. So forehead's a good spot to do this because it's this large form, and you can just mix. I'm doing it kind of all across the face to keep it unified. You see, what I did is I set a little trap for myself. I painted these really saturated colors in her forehead, and now I'm painting lighter lights directly into those while the paint's still wet. And this can go on indefinitely, and you can just keep working it. Okay, so that's just how to approach a head painting. I try to keep this around 5 minutes, so I hope this helps you, and I'll see you next time.